The 18th Legiones Astartes, the Salamanders. In the Great War of the Horus Heresy, many deeds of infamy and valor were writ upon the bloody stars, and at the center of this maelstrom lay the Salamanders' Legion. Betrayed, struck down, laid low, and yet ever resolute against the foe. There are few legions that have paid such a high price for their loyalty and honor as the Salamanders. There are fewer still who have so willingly and so often shed their own blood in mankind's defense beyond their measure and due. The Salamanders are such a legion, and though driven to near destruction not once, but time and again, its warriors have each time arisen from the ashes of war, stronger and tempered like the peerless steel blades fashioned in the legendary forges of their home world. Unbroken, undefeated, and unstintingly true to their cause. The 18th Legion was one of the so-called trefoil proto-legions. Its early histories, nature, and role veiled by edict of the Emperor and his agents. The 18th Legion gene strain showed clearly both in temperament and overtly in physiology. Of particular note was the strength of constitution displayed by a fully developed legionary, which had measurable superiority to the already superhuman space marine norms in relation to extreme temperature tolerance, radiological resistance, and cellular repair. This variant gene seed also had some unusual outward effects, causing ember-like bioluminescence to their eyes, and a tendency for skin pigmentation to permanently darken in response to prolonged exposure to high levels of potentially harmful radiation. As part of the biological defense mechanism, often adopting an unnatural granite-like or obsidian quality with sufficient exposure. The 18th was a legion of hardy survivors, known from its earliest days to achieve victory against impossible odds while sustaining minimal casualties. In the first few decades of the Great Crusade, before it was reunited with its Primarch, the Legion was often deployed piecemeal as pressing demands called for Space Marine involvement before multiple chapters were battle-ready. This led to the Legion being assigned across a considerable number of different reinforcement battle groups and specialist units such as rogue trader expeditions, and it rarely fought together as a full legion. Despite the nature of its battles, it was plain that to the 18th, to triumph against the odds was the only victory worth the name. The Legion was honored for fighting alongside the Exertus Imperialis time and again, and vaunted for its warriors' fearlessness in the face of insurmountable dangers, and the selfless lengths they would take to protect their allies and non-combatants during campaigns. However, retreat for the 18th was often unthinkable, even when tactical expediency would dictate otherwise. And the Legion frequently paid in blood for its own untenable standard of valor and service. At the battlefield level, circumstance, as well as natural temperament, focused the Legion's tactics on relatively short-range engagements, where it sought to counteract enemy numbers by the use of confined area engagement or shock assault. Here, the individual physical power of the Space Marine, his ability to endure, and relentless fury in battle could be relied upon to inflict disproportionate damage on almost any foe. Although the inherent risks were high. Such tactics naturally lend themselves to short range, but devastating arms, such as flame, Volkite ray, and melta weapons being preferred by the Legion. Supporting this tendency was the telling factor that even before the Nocturnian influence came to the fore, the technical aptitude demonstrated by the Legion's rank and file further served to allow them to maintain and indeed field manufacture such advanced weapons even while subjected to disparate deployments and uncertain supply. One of the Primarch Vulcan's first actions was to largely unify his scattered Legion and do away with its ad hoc strategic organization. But he did so in a way that preserved, where possible, the spirit of autonomy and self-sufficiency the component units of the 18th had developed, which he saw as inherent virtues tempered with purpose. At the strategic level, Vulcan ordered his Legion into the formation of 7 realms, each linked both in name and spirit with one of Nocturne's 7 great city settlements. To each of these, he assigned a Lord Commander, known also as a Protector, as it was their sworn duty, in addition to that of a warrior of the Emperor, to protect the city settlement in time of attack. The strong links between the Salamanders' brethren and the people of Nocturne came quickly to create bonds of kinship and loyalty within each company's ranks. An inevitable degree of competition between the Salamanders' companies was also fostered by the nature of this relationship, as well, which, tempered by Vulcan's teachings, spurred the Salamanders' legionaries to greater heights of achievement and attainment. Central to the ideals of the Salamanders was the Promethean cult. It formed a body of doctrine that codified and promoted the spirit and culture the Primarch desired for his Legion. A work of both clear vision and deep allegory, it drew both upon ancient Terran philosophical and martial thought, and the rich culture and mythic history of Nocturne on which Vulcan had been raised. Core to its tenets was the conviction that the Legiones Astartes had been created to fulfill a single and irrevocable purpose: the protection and liberation of all humanity, and that they were each and every one a savage weapon given physical and spiritual form to this single end. Vulcan was a giant in human form, one of the tallest of the Primarchs and broadest at the shoulder, armored in emerald scales like a dragon of ancient Terran myth. He was found on Nocturne, a death world of turbulent volcanic fire and radiation, riven by the destructive tidal forces of its moon, and plagued by predatory megafauna. The Primarch was tempered by this world, as a blade is tempered by flame, and rose to free his adopted people from the external threat of Xenos raiders and enslavers. It is believed that Vulcan did not become unified with his own legion for some years after his rediscovery, but instead stayed alongside the Emperor under his direct tutelage and studied closely in the weapon forges of Mars and with his brother Primarch Ferrus Manus. When Vulcan came to his legion, he remade it as he would fashion a weapon at the forge. In this, he gave the legion its name, taken from the greatest of Nocturne's saurian predators, ancient and deadly creatures whose blood was fire, and whose emerald hides were as hard as steel, the Salamanders of Nocturne. In this, Vulcan's choice carried a layered meaning, for not only were Nocturian salamanders monsters of savage power, with a great totemic significance to the native people, but as creatures they showed unflinching loyalty to their own blood and offspring. This spoke much to Vulcan's nature, a man of honor and integrity, who knew a weapon fashioned by skilled hands would never fail its wielder. The 19th Legiones Astartes, the Raven Guard, named for an ancient Terran herald of fate and messenger of death. The Raven Guard served the Emperor faithfully throughout the glories of the Unifaction and the Great Crusade, ever ready to overthrow the tyrant and the oppressor, and liberate the scattered realms of mankind in the name of justice. From its earliest days, the warriors of the Legion were known as cunning and patient hunters, adept at biding their time until the moment to strike was at hand. As masters of guile, subtlety, reconnaissance, and infiltration, their doctrines exemplified speed, stealth, and precision above all else, striking from the shadows with shocking strength. The 19th Legion was the Emperor's hidden hand. Vengeful sentinels against recidivism and harrowers of those who would sooner flee than bend knee before their new master. The Legion was founded according to the mindset and practices of the Xeric tribes, who conducted their wars against far more numerous foes, and were therefore well practiced in a wide spectrum of unconventional tactics. Individual units tended towards the smaller end of the scale set down by the architects of the Emperor's armies. But each was a tightly knit band of warriors, trained and equipped to operate on their own for extended periods. They were able to live off the land, taking what few resources they needed from their environment, or when opportunity or necessity dictated, from defeated enemies. Drawing on the demeanor of the techno-savages from which it recruited, the Proto-Legion quickly demonstrated its skill at reconnaissance and target identification, and its ability to transition from inscrutable watchfulness to rapid attack in the blink of an eye. Its legionaries waged war by infiltrating into position, studying their enemy, and when the time was right, striking from the least anticipated quarter and slaying the foe outright in a bloody yet brief assault. When Horus led his legion in the opening campaigns of the Great Crusade, he often requested that the 19th serve alongside his Luna Wolves. In those earliest days, many worlds rejected enlightenment and refused compliance, and so the blade of the 19th was there to strike, descending unseen. In time, Horus came to value the 19th greatly, using them as a tool of terror, suppression, and assassination, all tasks the Legion excelled at. It was only when the Primarch Corax was rediscovered on the world of Lycaeus and given command of the 19th that the nature of the Legion would change. Seeing in the tactics of the 19th the nature of the once oppressors of his world Corax had fought against, he refocused the Legion and turned their talents from terror troops to scouts and guerrilla fighters without peer. Upon assuming command of his legion, Corvus Corax took steps to codify the methods of warfare he had employed against the slaver lords of Lycaeus into a series of tactical and strategic maxims by which the Raven Guard would operate. While Corax assumed command quickly, giving the Legion his own strategic specialties, it is notable that as soon as he was able, Corax ensured that most of his senior commanders were drawn from Deliverance. The Primarch was distrustful of powerful outsiders, and his closest advisors and commanders would be those who had served alongside him as young freedom fighters during the Lycaean uprising. Indeed, dark rumor suggested that he so wished to distance his legion from their Terran origins and Horus's external influence that many senior warriors of the Legion of old were sacrificed in the Great Crusade's most protracted and wasteful campaigns, ill-suited to the skills of the Raven Guard, to purge the ranks of the taint of the oppressor and the overlord. Corax exclusively chose to recruit from the freed people of Deliverance, even formally renouncing rights of tithe on Terra. After several costly battles in the Great Crusade, such as the grueling combat of Gate 42, the numbers within the Legion swung in favor of those born on deliverance. During the Great Crusade, the Legion's stealth specialties were widely utilized and became ingrained, eschewing massed battles and attritional warfare. To aid their preference for and skill at fast strikes and hit-and-run raids, the Legion's armory was biased towards light attack vehicles and those marks of armor that favored agility and stealth over heavier plating. Many warriors of the 19th were ill-disposed towards slow and bulky Terminator suits, though the Legion maintained siege and heavy assault detachments which utilized these and became adept at daring close-range rapid shock assaults from both aerial transport and teleport deployment, in support of the Legion's scouts in deep infiltration if such missions floundered. Corax did not favor these units, though he called upon them as avatars of his carefully controlled anger, loosed when an enemy proved itself worthy only of utter destruction. During its restructuring, the Legion commissioned several innovations from the forges of Mars, all of them cunningly wrought to further its mastery of the arts of stealth and speed. From its largest starships to its smallest speeders, the Legion's vehicles were modified to obfuscate scanners and project stealth fields. As the Thunderhawk gunship entered widespread service, the Raven Guard secured for themselves a variant known as the Shadowhawk, sporting all manners of technologies that made it invisible to all but the most sensitive of augurs. Similarly, the Legion's Storm Eagle assault transports were named Darkwing patterns, modified for low-altitude stealth operations. In addition, the Legion gained access to the Whisper Cutter, an open-air frame flyer constructed about a gravitic impeller and capable of dropping 10 legionaries into a war zone in utter silence and with practically no chance of detection. At the outset of the Horus Heresy, the Raven Guard were among the smallest of the Emperor's Legion. This was due to their favored methods of waging war and Corax's own rigorous aspirant selection and recruiting methods, but also, in no small part, due to the events of the dire and ill-suited wars of attrition they were committed to by the War Master, such as at Gate 42. Perhaps in petty retribution for Corax's own acts of purging veterans of the 19th closest to Horus. These battles gutted the Legion and soured Corax to Horus, the former vowing never to fight alongside the other. Corvus Corax, the Raven Lord, named the Deliverer, came to awareness in a lightless chamber far beneath the surface of a barren moon called Lycaeus, a slave prison satellite ruled over by the tech guilds of Kivar, where notions of justice and human dignity had no place in the brutal regime. Corax swore to the people of his newfound world he would liberate them from their cruel existence. fighting for the freedom of the slaves of Lycaeus against the guilds. Corax learned the skills of subterfuge, swiftness, and covert warfare he would impart upon his legion. Upon his victory, he renamed his world Deliverance. In his formative years, the ivory-skinned, shadow-eyed, and sable-haired Primarch became a paragon for the virtues of the oppressed, a trait that would stand him apart from the arrogance and cruelty of many of his brothers. The Raven Lord frequently operated alone, or otherwise led very small bands of hand-picked warriors who, of all his sons, possessed skills comparable to his own. The More Dathan, or Shadow Masters. This predilection was derived from his time as a freedom fighter, where circumstances dictated small cells of rebels were often more effective than larger numbers. It was not unusual for Corax to himself conduct extensive reconnaissance prior to battle, while most Primarchs would leave such tasks to their warriors. Corax is also known to have led small forces on deep infiltrations far behind enemy lines, striking directly at the heart of an enemy force, leaving his line officers to conduct the overall operation. Frequently, the actions of the main force were in fact a ploy to draw the enemy's attentions from the Primarch's own mission, allowing him to strike the final blow and win the battle. The 20th Legiones Astartes, the Alpha Legion. Of all the mighty forces the Imperium commanded during the Great Crusade, there were none so wound about with falsehood, supposition, and paradox as the 20th Legion. Any study of the 20th is fraught with difficulty, contradiction, and deliberate misdirection, and uncovering truth when applied to such a study is a vain hope. This is the case even with a record such as this, compiled with the highest of authorities and most extensive reach possible. Perhaps some measure of the truth may be found in the lies of the secret history of the Alpha Legion. 20th Legion was a highly independent weapon that neither the Emperor nor later the War Master could fully control. It was a twisting, serpentine thing of formless shadows, as dangerous and venomous as the multi-headed monster of ancient myth that in latter days became its sigil. As a force dedicated to the arts of guile, subterfuge, infiltration, and counterintelligence, the Legion's covert efforts were intended to sow dismay, dismantle a foe's resolve, and defense's placemeal, before landing an overwhelming killing blow, utilizing every one of the myriad weapons and war machines granted the Legiones Astartes. Although, in many cases, these protracted and complex operations were the means and ends also, for the Legion was both unpredictable and delighted in causing strife. The 20th Legion was established largely in separation from the rest of the Legiones Astartes, and it is generally thought created to a very specific end and purpose. However, what these purposes were remains a mystery. Its gene seed strain was kept in secrecy, though it is known to have had a highly successful implantation rate and to be free of flaw. The Legion is also thought not to have expanded beyond a very small contingent of between 1,000 and 2,000 warriors for many of its early years, never having been granted a regional intake on Terra. However, later claims suggest the 20th multiplied in secret and may in fact have been the largest of all the legions. These first mysteries would spawn others, and questions would continue to go unanswered, not only about the 20th Legion's methods and nature, but about the use to which it was put in its earliest days. Before it acted as a united legion, the 20th may have been operating in the shadows of the Imperium for more than a century, building a web of influence unlike any other Space Marine Legion, and undertaking a secret war at once part of and parallel to the Great Crusade itself. There are no clear facts pertaining to the 20th Legion's covert activities during the unifaction of Saul, but they can be extrapolated from records of unknown Legiones Astartes units carrying out targeted strikes, abductions, and assassinations, and reports of Space Marines answering to no known master or legion, passing through war zones on high-priority missions under the writ of unassailable clearance codes. These legionaries bore a range of colors and styles of heraldry, with little to no uniformity, sometimes even mimicking the livery of other legions. It is impossible to ascertain whether there was some hidden schema to these masquerades, whether they were intended simply to confound allies and enemies alike, or if they served a martial purpose known only to the Legion itself. The Imperialis Logistica could not confirm even the most basic details of the Legion, be it the Legion's primary spheres of recruitment, or even gauge its operating strength. It was a Legion seemingly sprung whole and entire as if from nowhere, complete with tens of thousands of fully equipped legionaries and a capable war fleet that operated with veteran skill. Only Alfarius knew the true extent of his legion and its domains, its strength and its reach, and perhaps even he knew it only imperfectly. The Alpha Legion's companies, battalions, and chapters, referred to as heroes, cohorts, or instruments in shifting meaning, were formulated and broken down seemingly at the whim of the Legion's commanders, the chain of command appearing fluid and highly decentralized. A hero master, a master strategist, would hold ultimate command of a war zone, But specialists, such as siege masters or vigilators, were deferred to in their fields of expertise. Under these, each unit was expected to operate as a self-motivated and self-governing cell without need of exterior command, and expected to display initiative and pursue its part in the wider battle plan under its own cognizance and in any way it judged to be expedient. And each warrior of the Legion was trained to excel in battlefield and strategic awareness. In battle, the Alpha Legion became renowned for its discipline and impenetrable organization, which emphasized the unity of the Legion and cooperation between its legionaries in every respect. It maintained a wide spectrum of military assets and capacities, and was dedicated to flexibility and capability in every type of war zone. The Legion was known to pride itself on its unbreakable unity of purpose and will, even though Alfarius encouraged his commanders to operate with extreme independence of thought and action. The Alpha Legion made extensive use of human agents and paramilitaries, building close ties with many such organizations. However, it kept its distance from its fellow legions. Rumors followed that the Alpha Legion fought alongside each of its brothers in turn, that it might insert its own operatives into their ranks, though such hearsay is impossible to substantiate. The Legion's hallmark was a relentless application of force and a terrifying level of coordination between its warriors and war machines. This capacity for combined arms warfare, speed, and surety of attack was matched by a mastery of the darker arts of war, of sabotage and ambush, terror tactics and assassination. Also evident was its desire for secrecy and talent for misdirection. To its enemies, the Legion was a true nightmare, a foe that could strike from any direction, but seemed to thwart any stratagem and strike at weakness, no matter how well hidden. The Legion was a foe that knew neither mercy nor honor nor quarter, and one that seemed to delight in destruction for its own sake, in the chaos and anarchy it could inspire before the death blow. As the youngest Legion, 20th was zealous to prove itself against its brothers at any cost, and the often over-elaborate and needly complex and malign way in which the Alpha Legion chose to wage war frequently earned it acrimony rather than fame. The Harrowing was the name given to the Legion's most infamous stratagem, by which it wielded a devastating mixture of subtlety and overwhelming force, reveling in both meticulous planning and the exercising of imaginative cruelty in war. Beginning with infiltration and sabotage, the Alpha Legion spread confusion and panic unseen, maiming and bleeding its foes' main strength, and forcing upon them such vulnerability as the Alpha Legion wished. Then would come the kill. Often, this final attack, the harrowing itself, would be in the form of an assault from 100 directions at once. A blizzard of different tactics and attack plans used against a foe either utterly unaware of the true danger or already brought to the brink of chaos. The result was almost inevitable catastrophe for the Alpha Legion's victims, as the full might of the Legion, comprised often of elite Lernian Terminators, would then descend at the point of the enemy's greatest weakness, and what would follow would be more akin to murder than battle. Much of this knowledge can only be inferred, however, as the Alpha Legion's harrowings left no survivors or witnesses. Of the many mysteries that surround the 20th Legion, the most fundamental and key enigma is the question of its Primarch. Multiple conflicting reports speak of Alpharius's rediscovery, from the Emperor rescuing him from Xenos enslavement, those claiming he boarded Horus's flagship in a calculated raid only to meet his kin by chance, to those daring to suggest he was not scattered as his brothers, but grew into maturity on Terra alongside the Emperor. All such accounts are lies. It is widely believed that on diverse occasions, members of his legion each claimed not only Alpharius's name, but also his identity. Even in council with allied legions and emissaries of the imperial court. Some have made the outlandish claim that there was more than one Primarch of the Alpha Legion, or that Alpharius was even somehow able to duplicate himself physically, and appear to be in more than one location simultaneously. Some have even attributed metaphor hidden in plain sight to the emblem of the three-headed Hydra that later came to symbolize the Legion in this regard. Furthering this mystery and the outright deception perpetrated by Alpharius, many reliable reports of the Primarch's physical appearance differ. While he is noted on many occasions to be of similar stature and countenance of any of his legionaries, and able to pass unnoticed in their ranks, other records show him as a towering and fearful figure, bedecked in sinisterly ornate, Hydra-chased battle plate. Whatever the case, contemporary accounts record Alpharius as being the last Primarch to rejoin his legion, and describe him as a masterful tactician and strategist. His erudition was astounding, and his great intelligence was as cool and as watchful as a viper's gaze.